Welcome back, Smok'n Jay's Garage. We're working on our C4 Corvette today. We are putting new shocks on it, and I'll show you why. I've got one side mostly done already. I actually had a lot of issues yesterday. We'll get into that as we go along. But I had the stock Bilsteins on them, which you see are kind of oily. They don't really pop back up that good. This is a front shock. This is the rear shock. They're pretty much worn out. This is, in comparison, this is the new one. Now, I went with KYB. Those pop right back up pretty good. They come down a lot harder, obviously. And I just got that one all full of oil. So that's what we want. Those other ones are pretty worn out. It's on our 92 Corvette, so these are obviously the original ones. Now, I went with KYB because they were substantially cheaper. From what I read, and my understanding is they are going to give us a slightly more cushy ride. They are not going to be quite as firm, and definitely not what you're going to want if you're going to be tracking your car. This car is actually for my son. He is just about to turn 17. So he's probably not going to spend a whole lot of time on the track, and almost triple the cost for the Bilsteins. We're not really going to get the use out of those as far as the additional handling that they would provide. The KYBs are a lot cheaper, and they are going to give us a little bit more Cadillac ride, I think. So that's what we're actually hoping for, and obviously, like I said, they're a lot cheaper. So let me pop the hood here a little bit, and I will show you what the old one looks like. Let me get to the other side. Hold on. And I'll show you what the one that's on looks like. There we go. Now, I have heard that you can take these shocks off without the wheels being taken off, but obviously we didn't do that. We took the wheels off. It's going to be a lot easier for us to do it, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to see it. So there's our new shock on. I'm not going to show you the back right now because with the wheels on, you really can't see anything, but if you come around to this side, you will see the old shock. Now, this does not have the Z51 performance package or the MagneRide suspension. If you have the MagneRide suspension, you're going to have a box on top of here. It's going to be a lot more work to do. You could put these shocks on, but then you're going to lose your MagneRide. So that's something you may or may not want to give up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the wheels off of here, and we'll get started right away, okay? All right, we've got our wheel off here. What we are going to do is we got to take this bolt off here. It's a 15 millimeter. If it spins, there is a 5 millimeter kind of nut looking thing here on the top that'll hold that, so we can loosen this bolt. And then we've got two 13 millimeters, one on either side here. It's actually a bolt that goes through on the top and a nut on the bottom. So we're going to have to hold that nut on the bottom, spin the bolt out from the top. The only thing that I did notice different about these shocks, the Bilsteins actually have a hole where they bolt in, versus the KYBs have just a slot. I don't know if that's really going to make any kind of a difference, but just a difference that I did notice. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull these off here. It's 13 millimeter on the top, like I said. Sorry, on the bottom. We'll pull these off quick. There's one. Try not to lose your nut, because you will need to reuse that. Now, as you see, your whole A-arm did drop just a little bit. I can't really pick it up, it's kind of heavy. But that's fine, that's going to happen a little bit. What I did when I put the other side back on is put a jack stand underneath here, and I just lowered it a little bit to pull that up and help me put it on. I'll get into that when we get that far. So, we're just going to put our 15 millimeter on here, and we got our, I think I said 5 millimeter, it's actually 6 millimeter. And then we're going to turn this here. So I noticed the bushings, this is the bushings on the new one, and the little metal plate that goes on it are actually quite a bit smaller than the bushings on the old ones. These are just pop off here, and then you can pop the bottom one out. might be a little bit harder. I was thinking about reusing these, but then I thought the other ones actually look pretty good. So, there we go. You'll notice that they're quite a bit smaller. You set them on top of there. If you look at the things here, this is a little bit hot yet because I was cutting that one. When we put these in though, you notice that one side's smooth, the other side's got a little nipple on it. That is going to take up the space right in between here. So you're going to want to put that nipple to nipple. Gives you that space there for your frame. And we'll put those on. Obviously I had to cut that one off. I had to cut the other side off too. But I don't care because these shocks aren't good for anything really. But hopefully you can get yours off. I did spray them with some PB Blaster, but it didn't seem to help much. So we'll just slide this shock right out. Alright, I just cleaned up our mounting surface a little bit. We're just going to slide our shock in. If you look, this seems to be pretty sturdy this way. I can't move this by hand. Obviously it's not going to fit this way. We're going to have to put it this way. That's pretty easy. I'm sure you guys would have figured that out without me saying. And I'm just going to drop my bolts in. Now this does have a little bit of room to slide. So I'm going to drop my bolts in and I'm going to try to center it as best as I can. And then we're going to go ahead and I'm probably actually going to put the wheel back on and we'll just slowly let it down until we can get that to fit rather than trying to jack this up, although you could just jack this up. This gets torqued to 22 pound-feet. Now one thing that you need to remember to do that I forgot to do before you put this in, make sure that you go ahead and put these are gonna go on the bottom. These need to be over here. So we're gonna try to compress this spring and put that back in without having to pull that out. But make sure you put these in first. So I put the wheel back on and I lowered some of the pressure. So I still got some weight on the jack and I've still got some weight on, a little bit of weight on the car. So I'm going to push this, and remember nipple side down. I'm going to put that nipple right in the hole. That should hold my shock into place. And I probably should have lowered it just a little bit more, but at least I can get it started here. And that'll keep us in the right space. Let me just lower it a little bit more. The torque specs on the front are a little bit different. Once the weight of the car is completely on it, you want this rubber to bulge out just a hair past the washer. So I slowly lowered the pressure off the jack to make sure that I got everything lined up. I got it tight enough now. I'm going to go ahead and lower the jack the rest of the way. The rest of the weight is on the car. And now we're going to slowly tighten this up until we get this bulge to just pop out past the edge of the metal washer that's on there. You can always check these after you go for a little bit of a ride. You can make sure that these are still the right way. And this one comes with a jam nut. So once you get it where you want to be, slip that jam nut on there. Go ahead and snug that down. Now one thing that I did not mention, once you put that on there, it's going to spin. I'm going to spin it around because I do not want that red gas adjust showing. I'm just going to put that there. I just see the shock. Looks prettier to me. Alright, so we're good on that. So some people question putting new shocks on, is it going to raise your ride height? Shocks should not be considered something that is what you do to adjust your ride height. But I did, however, because you saw my old shocks, they were pretty, there wasn't really a whole lot holding them up. So I did measure the gap between my wheel and my fender all the way around, and I was just over 2.5 inches of my gap here. I had about 2 5/8. And when I did the other side, I took it for a ride around the block, let everything settle, and then I measured it again, and I had gained about 1/16 of an inch. So nothing that you could really notice unless you were actually measuring it. Once I get this side done and everything settles again, we'll take it around, we'll see how it drives, and we'll measure that again just to make sure. But this is the easy one. Let's head on over to the back one. Alright, we got this back wheel off now. You've got 2 13 millimeter nuts right there that are going to come off, and you have a 21 millimeter that's going to come off here. As you loosen these up though, in order for this to come out, it's going to compress the spring a little bit. I like to take the bottom one off first. I like to take the impact on there because I don't want the other side to spin. So we're going to just zip this off with the impact. Alright, so we pulled our shock off. It looks very similar to this. I've already loosened these up. You can put yourself a wrench or something on here, loosen this up. I use an impact. That's going to help you out a lot. Just slide that out. And then you're not going to reuse this at any rate. So I went ahead and I put a vice grip on here to hold it because I could not get this loosened up by itself. That little 6 millimeter really doesn't do a whole lot to hold that. So go ahead and pull those off. You are not going to reuse these bushings. You are going to reuse this. And you are going to reuse this. I'm going to go ahead and just clean this up with a wire brush a little bit, and then we'll put it on the new one. I cleaned this up, put this back on the new one, exactly the way it came off of the old one. Now we put our rubber grommet and our metal washer. Make sure you put those down first. Remember, we forgot that on the front. Put your nipple up. Put this over the top of it. Line that up. Nipple down. And then we're going to tighten this down. Now, the front one, we tightened to 22 foot-pounds. The back one, we tightened to 19 foot-pounds. Pound-feet. It's actually pronounced pound-feet. I don't really know what the difference is. Now, on the front one, we compressed this one until we started to see this. You got to remember to put that metal washer, though, on top. Don't just start tightening down on the rubber like I did. Because this is going to be up inside of the car when it goes back on, we're just going to actually have to, we're going to have to torque this down to specs rather than do it the way that it looks. So I Googled it and it said 19 pound-feet. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we should be able to get this, we're not going to have any pressure on it, but we should be able to get this to squeeze a little bit. It'll pretty much snug up. You'll feel it's pretty snug. And then we're going to go ahead and flip on that jam nut. And then this is ready to go back in. So when I was taking these out, I found it to be a little bit easier. Obviously I have the car jacked up and the wheel off. I put a jack stand under here and I lowered a little bit of the weight of the car off of the jack, or onto the jack stand rather, just so this slid in and out of the bracket on the backside a lot easier. At first I put the nut on and I tapped it a little bit, and once I cracked it loose I wasn't able to push it out. So I just lowered my jack onto the jack stand enough that this would move and I could pop it out. So I would recommend that you do that. That will also probably make it easier to put back in once you line that up. Then you can go up or down on the jack a little bit, just how you need it perfectly. So what I ended up doing, this is ready to go back in. It's going to slide up in here like so. Pop right into the hole, and then right in on the back side. There we go. Tighten that up. Except I broke both of the bolts off when I was trying to get that out. I actually broke one on the other side. I broke both on this side. So I'm going to have to drill and tap those out, and that's just going to be a little bit more of a video than you want to watch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Maybe I'll do a separate video on that. What I will do, though, is I will link these part numbers in the description if you want to do them. I was going to do a review and everything on these. We were going to take it out and drive it, but now it's going to take me quite a while probably to get this done. And just in case I don't get to it today, we'll go ahead and finish up this video. And in the next video, I'll show you that they're on. Maybe I'll show you how I drilled and tapped them out if that's something that maybe you guys have a problem with too. But for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and call this one a video. So thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful to you, with the exception of not being able to get that back shock back on. But all you got to do is, assuming that you have the bolts that aren't broken off, put those two bolts back in the same way they came out, and you put your 21 millimeter nut on the back side. Torque that up to 19 pound-feet on the back, and throw your tire back on, and you are good to go. Boom! Thanks for watching this. If you're watching this channel for the first time and you haven't already, and you want to, please subscribe.